All right. So I'm back on my history channel and it feels good. I've been waiting to deal with this subject, get this video out the way. I'm going to be very careful with how I deal with this video, but it's primarily in response to a video recently uploaded on a channel called King Kong Consciousness. Again, that's King Kong Consciousness. It's spelled exactly how it sounds. And it is the YouTube channel of Dr. Umar Johnson. Dr. Umar Johnson. Now, I've been critical of Dr. Umar Johnson in the past. I've removed the videos where I was critical of him. You know, I hope that he gets the help he needs, and, you know, wish him luck on any positive missions that he may have. But I wanted to object to this video that he made. And in doing so, I'm going to object to a very popular narrative that has been promoted by several foundational Black Americans, or ADOS, African American, however you categorize yourself. But keep in mind, I'm talking about Black Americans and Black America. If you're from the Caribbean or somewhere, I'm not really directing this towards you. So I may as well deal with this in a broad sense. It's not so much an objection to Umar Johnson or to Tariq Nasheed, but it is going to be objective. I'm going to object to their narrative, to their belief, to what they preach on this particular subject, because to me, it just doesn't make sense. And I'm not trying to come down on them or make them look stupid or make them look dumb. I'm just saying, hey, there's something about this that doesn't make sense to me. It just doesn't make sense. And I know that there's a lot of people, Black Americans, foundational Black Americans. I know for a fact there's many of them who agree with me. Whether you do or don't, let's deal with it. Now, let me first of all deal with this video that was uploaded by Umar Johnson. Okay, let me change screens here. We're talking about ethnic groups. Black Americans are an ethnic group, and I appreciate the efforts by people like Tariq Nasheed, who have, and Dr. Claude Anderson, several teachers have identified Black Americans or strengthened the argument that we are a distinct ethnic group. And we just are. Black Americans, we can go to any country in this world, and as soon as the people hear us talk, they know you're a Black American. We can't hide. We cannot hide, people. When you're talking about a distinctive ethnic group, we fit the description perfectly. I don't care where you go, China, Japan, Mexico. As soon as people anywhere around the world hear us talk, they know exactly where we're from. So most definitely we are an ethnic group. And I like the idea of us standing on that and pointing out the fact that we are just as much of an ethnic group as any other ethnic group. We have our own music. We have our own language. How many times have they tried to create a word for the way that we speak? Y'all remember back in the 70s, it used to be the jive talk. we have seriously manipulated the English language. It's like pretty crazy. And you go to different parts of the United States, they have different slang. I mean, our slang is ridiculous. We've manipulated the English language to the point where we could be somewhere talking and white people don't even understand what we're talking about, even though we're speaking English. But because we manipulate English, we'll leave off a R, we'll say it a certain way, it rolls off our tongue in a different way on top of using slang. It's like speaking a different language. Now, this is without even touching on the Tut language. I hope someday I get a larger following here on YouTube, because I really want to discuss a lot of these things that did go through and I've been talking about this on YouTube for several years, well over a decade. I just want to get back into it. So we are a distinct ethnic group, and I'm very thankful to people like Tariq Nasheed and Umar Johnson and any other black man out here risking their life. No matter what people think, people call these guys pimps, hustlers, and whatnot. No matter what you think about them, they're risking their life. People talk about Tariq's money. He's putting all his money on the line. He goes all over the place, and he's talking about going up to Washington, D.C. He targets white supremacists. These people could try to kill him at any moment, and he's okay with that. I got to take my hat off to anybody who's willing to die for the improvement of their group. But I have to strongly disagree with this narrative about, quote, mixed race Africans. Mixed race Africans. And that's actually in the title of this video. I've heard Umar say this several times. Likewise, I've heard Tariq Nasheed say that if you are a biracial, then you're not really biracial. You're actually a black person. That in a system of white supremacy, there's no such thing as a biracial person. So they both, even though they tend to be at odds with each other, they both have the same basic belief in that regard.
The problem with some mixed race Africans is you are uncomfortable about your identity. You haven't made up your mind yet as to whether or not you want to live as a biracial. You haven't made up your mind if you want to live as an undercover white person. You don't know what you want to be.
See, this right here, this is the problem that I have with this. This doesn't work, fellas. It just doesn't work. How can you be a distinct group of people if you don't even have a distinct genetic code, a distinct phenotype? I just don't get it. That does not work for me. Black people, we can't choose to live like a white person. We don't have that choice. We can't make a decision in our mind to live as a non-black person, which is what many biracial people do. And some of them choose to live and identify as a black person. The fact remains that these are biracial people, mixed race people, and I have nothing against mixed race people. All I'm saying is that I would feel much more comfortable working with a biracial person who says, yes, I'm biracial. At the end of the day, it's about honesty. Being honest, I don't like to embrace anything that's dishonest. And that's flat out a lie. Biracial people are not black. They're biracial, and there's nothing wrong with being biracial. If a biracial person does things to help black people, it doesn't take away from your efforts that you're biracial. That's not a strike against you. You'll be just as appreciated for what you've done as if you were black. I don't co-sign with this. Let's continue.
Once you have come to the realization, once you have come into the consciousness that you are a black man or a black woman, and you affirm that, the world will respond to you based on your foundation. You have to stand first in order for the world to sit down. When I hear mixed race Africans say, Dr. Umar, I'm not sure, that's okay. It's okay to go through some confusion. Okay? But in order to come out of that confusion, you have to make up your mind. It's okay to go through some confusion. But in order to come out of that confusion, you have to make up your mind.
No, it's not okay to be confused. Confusion, no, that's not okay, and it's not necessary. There's nothing to be confused about. If you are a biracial person, simply admit it. Don't tell me I'm not biracial, I'm black, and then I meet your white parent. It does not work like that. You should not go around feeling ashamed of what one of your parents are. That's just not psychologically healthy. And when you identify what you are, it should include what both of your parents are. And it's highly disrespectful to only acknowledge one of your parents. There's no way around that.
And say, I'm going to live my life as an African. And the reason why so many of my mixed race African brothers and sisters, because let me say this, I accept all of you who accept your Africanity, your African DNA, your African ancestors, your African heritage.
They can accept their African heritage, their blackness. That's fine. That's good. That's very healthy psychologically. It's not healthy to act as if one of your parents don't exist. I don't care what nobody says. That's not psychologically healthy.
If you identify as being an African, I have no problem with you.
No, y'all notice it's only us who talk about making a decision to be black. Being black is not a decision, man. It's something you're born as. You can't escape it. There ain't no nonsense about, let me decide what I want to be. A white person can't decide to be a black person, no matter how hard they try. It just doesn't work, people. It doesn't work.
If you identify as being an African, I have no problem with you. Now, if you're going to say you're mixed race and multiracial, I don't want to be bothered with you. I don't have time.
Wow. Did y'all hear that? He said that if you identify as what you actually are, then I don't want to have nothing to do with you. This is also shameful. Black people, don't try to shame biracial people who want to identify as biracial. That is so shameful. And a lot of people see this in us, how we try to force and shame biracial people to say that they're black in order for us to feel better about being black. So we can point towards them and say, hey, look at that black person. Sort of a self-esteem thing. We got to cut that out. And I am not speaking as no non-black American. People, I've talked to people, never even seen me before. They know for a fact this is a full-blooded black American, foundational black American. We are a distinct group, especially in how we speak. We are a distinct ethnic group. But how can you be a distinct ethnic group when you claim that a white person and a black person has a black child rather than a biracial child? Because that would mean that biracial child, this supposedly black, can now mate with a white person and they still have a black child. That does not work. We'll get into that. But that just does not work. The logic here is completely off. Why is it okay for you to tell biracial people that they're wrong for saying that they're biracial, which is nothing but the truth? Okay, let me play this again. Let me play that again.
African, I have no problem with you. If you identify as being an African, I have no problem with you. Now, if you're going to say you're mixed race and multiracial, I don't want to be bothered with you. I don't have time for that because you're mixed up.
No, they're being honest. This is the problem I have with this. They're being honest. Anytime you attack people for being honest, there's a problem. I don't care what they're being honest about. It's better for people to be honest. That's the best option. That's why I don't like this idea of covert racism. I appreciated this country much more back when they were honest. And they say, hey, look, I don't want black people in my establishment. I don't want to live around black people. Whether or not that's right or wrong is irrelevant. You're being honest. And when you're honest, other people know how they should operate around you. I do not support deception and the support of falsehood, of lies. And that's exactly what this is.
I can't go into battle with a mixed up Negro.
No, that does not work. It does not work, people. I cannot roll with this.
I didn't say reject your white father.
Yes, you did say reject your white father. You did say reject your white mother. If you're saying that they can't identify as a biracial person, a mixed race person, they can only be accepted if they identify as a black person, that's exactly what you're saying, man. And that ain't cool. And I'm not comfortable with that.
I didn't say reject your white father. I didn't say reject your white mother. That is your mother. You should love her and you should honor her. That is your mother. That is your father. You should love your father. You should honor your father. That's the reason you got here. Nobody is asking the mixed race African to reject their white parent. No one is asking the mixed race African to reject your parents.
Does that even make sense? You're not telling them to reject their white parent, but you're also telling them that you won't accept them unless they identify as black, as African. That they only have the option to identify as black or African in your mind, even though they actually are biracial or mixed race. Who in their right mind supports something like this? I do not support this type of mentality, man, and it looks sad and pathetic and shameful on the part of black people because it makes black people look like they're ashamed of their genes. It makes black people look like they are ashamed of how they look. And that is not cool. That's not cool. I don't support that.
No one is asking the mixed race African to reject your parent. We're not telling you to do that. Okay? You have a non-African parent, whether they Caucasian, Asian, Arab, Mexican, you have a not Japanese, Chinese, you have a non-African parent, you should respect them. You should learn that culture. That is part of your ancestry. Nobody's telling you to alienate yourself from one half of your ancestry. We're not saying that. What we're saying is that you are an African. The DNA that predominates in your cells, in your body, in your melanin, in your skin, in your hair, in your voice, in your body, that's African energy. You are an African with a white parent. You are.
So he said biracial people are Africans with a white parent. This is embarrassing to me. I think this is embarrassing. And it just does not work, ladies and gentlemen. It does not work. And I'm not trying to attack mixed race people. I have all love in the world for all people who acknowledge the truth and who are honest. Again, you can't take anything away from the efforts of a mixed race person at all. But there's simply no reason to reject one half of yourself. There's no reason. If you're mixed race, identify as mixed race. If you are a supporter of black causes, your efforts will speak for themselves, and people will applaud you, black or otherwise, for your efforts. Your efforts is really all that matters. If you are a white person and you're making an honest effort to help black people as a whole in some way, you should be applauded for your efforts. You don't have to be black to do something constructive with or for another people. Do you see what I'm saying? There's just no reason to lie and be dishonest. I feel like once you get into dishonesty and lying, then that is a problem. You should never practice dishonesty and look at dishonesty as something honorable. It's one man's opinion. One man's opinion. And yeah, Umar is one of those people who believes that we are all African. But listen, I am American. I'm American. My ancestors have been in America for thousands of years. I have African DNA. No doubt. Originally, my ancestors did come from Africa, but that was so long ago. We have adapted to this land. We are just as much American as others, as the Sentinelese are Sentinelese, right? So this is bad to me, and this really rubs me the wrong way. I cannot roll with this. I cannot roll with the ideology that has come from some of the major spokesmen of black Americans, and that is this narrative right here. Okay, let me change my screen back. That's what I want to get into on this video. I've heard Tariq Nasheed say something very similar. He said there's no such thing as a biracial person in a system of white supremacy. That whites will look at biracial people as black. I've dealt with this before. Again, no other group allows other people to decide who they are. A group of Chinese people, they're not going to allow outsiders, whites or blacks, to decide for them who is and who is not Chinese. How in the world will we even know anyways? They're the only people qualified to point out who is Chinese and who's not Chinese. Who are we to try to make that decision? And to say that just because whites view biracial people as black, then that's actually what they are, that makes no sense. I acknowledge that some whites view biracial people as black, but maybe half or more than half of white people, in my opinion, acknowledge biracial people as biracial people. They view them as people with a lot of black DNA and who have traits of white people. Like, hey, there's a part of me inside of you. They can sort of relate a little more with biracial people. They do acknowledge that they are biracial. We're not living in a slave system, chattel slavery, where they forced biracial people into the plantation along with the black people. And quite often, that didn't even happen. Quite often you saw that the biracial people who were enslaved, they got to live inside the house. They got more privileges. Quite often, they would be freed. They would inherit their white father's money or property and stuff like that. They enjoyed privileges. Here in white America, they did. Now, I know Tariq's talking about how it was not like that. Even here in America, there was biracial privilege all across the country. So this is not an attack against anyone, but this ideology just doesn't work. Now, let's look at this. Ethnicity, the fact or state of belonging to a social group that has a common national or cultural tradition. Generally, an ethnic group, they have a specific language. And in my opinion, that is us Black Americans. Again, we can go anywhere on this planet. Most people will know. As soon as we start talking, they're going to know you're a Black American. We're more of a distinct ethnic group in that regard than any ethnic group in Africa. You have a Ghanaian go around the world. Even when they speak to the people, they're not going to know that they're from Ghana. They might know that they're African. They might know, hey, you're from Africa. But they're not going to know what specific group they're a member of. Black Americans are more of a distinct ethnic group in that regard than a lot of different ethnic groups around the world. We most definitely have our own language. It's our own form of English. It just is. And not only that, we did create the Tut language, and it is still spoken in small circles. Music. We most definitely have our own music, people. Black Americans have created entire genres of music. Could you imagine this world without jazz? Without rock and roll? Just try to picture this in your mind. Without rap/hip hop? Could you imagine this world without these music genres? How different it would be? Black Americans, we created it. Just because a bunch of other people started to create the same music doesn't mean it's universal. You simply picked up on our cultural music. And it's our music, especially because it was created during a time when all we had was hand instruments, where we literally had to create this music from the ground up. And it started when we didn't even have musical instruments, with spirituals. So yes, most definitely we have our own music. We are an ethnic group. In many ways, we have our own style of dress. Okay? And most importantly, that I think Tariq and his followers, Umar and his followers, I think they'd agree with this. That part of Black American culture is fighting injustice against Black Americans. Right? Tariq was just recently talking about that, putting emphasis on that. How we have a culture of fighting against racism. Now, how can stuff like this stand the test of time if biracial people are actually black? You get a white person and a black person who have a child. They are now biracial. They have their own phenotype. They are a combination of both a black person and a white person. If you call that biracial child black and you swear and stand on the idea that this is a black person because all you need is one black parent to be a black person, that means this biracial person is a black person. This is their argument, not mine. This is what they're saying, not me. You heard Umar literally say it. You are an African with a white parent. So if all you need is one black parent to be black, then they're saying that she is black, and that if she has a baby by a white man and the child is 1/4 black, they are saying that this is still a black person. Someone who is 1/4 black. Based on their belief, they're still black people. Now that presents all kinds of problems. Because if this continues, if this 1/4 black person is black according to your standard, then if she has a child by a white man, that baby is also black. That's what their logic says. So, in other words, you eventually are going to have a straight up white person who is black based on that ideology. People, I'm saying that does not work. Recently, a white guy called or joined Tariq's Twitter space, and he was saying, I'm black because I'm like 1/8 black. And Tariq was saying, no, you're not. But based on Tariq's own ideology, yes, that white dude was a black person. Based on Tariq's logic, that white dude was in fact a black person. That doesn't work for me. I'm sorry. That don't work for me. I will not refer to biracial people as black if they have a black parent and someone who's not black. Just like I would not refer to a person who has a white parent and a Japanese parent, I would not refer to them as a Japanese person or a white person. I would show respect to both of their parents and identify them or label them biracial. That's the respectful and accurate thing to do. Another big question is, if this pattern continues, if a biracial person, she gets with a white man, has a baby, and their child gets with another white person, has a baby, and that keeps happening until you have a blonde-haired, blue-eyed white person who is black according to their standard, according to their ideology, still a black person. Okay, my question is, do you believe that they're going to identify as a foundational black American? And if they do, are you going to agree? Do you think later down the line, when that black has been erased, do you think they're going to identify as a black person? Of course not. And they will be well within their rights to not identify as a black person. Now, this girl is 1/4 black. If I'm not mistaken, this individual here is 1/4 black. What do you think their kids look like once they mate with a white person and then their kids mate with a white person? Mathematically, that's just inaccurate. It's a lie. These are not black people. Biracial people are not black people. They are biracial people, and that's not a disrespectful thing to point out. I don't understand why people flip that into something disrespectful to the biracial person. It's not. That's not an attack on a biracial person or nothing silly like that. Nothing but propaganda. Here's another child that's 1/4 black. This guy is biracial, white wife, child. Does that look like a black child to you? It's shameful. It's shameful to push this ideology. It makes you look like you're afraid of your genetics. If you are an ethnic group, an identifiable ethnic group, you are supposed to pride yourself on your genes, on the genes that make you what you are. No matter what you think about radical groups who do value their genes, you can't knock it. That's something that, in my opinion, is admirable. I admire, and I always have, ever since I was little, the Asians, whatever group they are, Chinese, Japanese, whatever. I admired that they wanted Chinese grandchildren. They wanted to keep their lineage intact. The idea of a biracial person being black means that you're willing to have the genes that makes them black, you're willing to have it erased. Do y'all understand that if this pattern happened, then biologically, this literally would not be a black person at all. They will be mostly Irish, right? Lithuanian, or whatever Caucasian that they're mixed with. They literally, biologically, their literal blood is now white, but based on the ideology, those are actually black people. I can't roll with that. It's embarrassing. It's shameful. It makes no sense. It just is inaccurate. And again, it makes us look like we are ashamed of our genes. If we were serious, if any group is serious about existing as a distinct, identifiable group, the number one priority is to not mix with others. That has to be one of your standards. That's the very thing that's going to keep you in existence. To not mix with other groups. That way, 1,000 years from now, you still exist. You haven't been erased. Many groups of people have been completely erased. You look over there at many of them countries in the Middle East, they don't identify as black. In fact, they have racial caste systems. The country be racist as all hell. But all of those people have black ancestors. So it's an ideology of genocide. All those Arabs over there, they all have black ancestors if you go back far enough. So do you think your offspring, do you think they're going to identify as black when all of their black genetics have been washed away? That sounds like an embarrassed, a shameful ideology. We cannot do that. I cannot do that. Note that I cannot refer to biracial people as black. It's just not true. They're biracial, and there's nothing wrong with that. They didn't ask to be born a biracial. They had no control over it. Do not turn that into some type of an attack. Now, with black Americans, now this is where we're going to get a little controversial. Just a little controversial. I've personally heard black people brag. I'm talking about foundational black Americans. And I've been hearing this all my life. I've heard them brag about how black Americans come in many different shades. Many different shades. We can be very dark. We can be very light. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with being proud of how you look, what you are. You better be. If you want to be a sane individual, you better learn to love what you are. Oh, we come in many different shades. Us black Americans, we come in many different colors. But isn't the lighter skinned black people among us, aren't they the black people who reflect the fact that we have Caucasian blood flowing through our population? Isn't that the real reason why we have so many wide varieties of colors, of shades? It's exactly why. It is exactly why we have so many among us who are light-skinned. So what I notice here, that is a case of a group of black people who pride themselves on being infused with white blood. Is that or is that not true? You're priding yourself in it. You're saying that's one of the things that makes you an attractive group. There's a difference between being proud and comfortable with what you are and flaunting it, trying to sort of rub it in other people's face, holding it up as some type of flagship representative of what makes us so beautiful. But it's worse than that. As we all know, there is a light skin sort of, there's a belief that the lighter you are, the more attractive you are. That does exist among foundational black Americans. I'm not saying that all of us are this way, obviously. But I got to be honest too, I've been hearing it all my life. Many of us believe that the lighter you are, the more attractive. We've all heard the stories and actually seen the lighter skinned kids and babies get more attention, how they're treated better. Their light skin is viewed as a blessing. That exists among foundational black Americans too. I'm not saying how prevalent it is. I'm not saying that it's all of us, but it does exist among us. Let's be honest. So where do you think that would lead us to? You have a light-skinned sort of superiority belief. You have the idea that biracial people are actually black. People, this sounds like a group of black people who are on the path of extinction. A group of black people who are going to end up just like those black people in those Arab countries. Lighter is better. I don't know why black people in America believe we're immune to going extinct. We cannot exist if we're not black. If we're no longer black, then we no longer exist as an ethnic group. If all of us look like this, We're not even going to call ourselves foundational Black American. We're going to look at ourselves as non-Black, just like those Arabs view themselves as non-Black. You can talk about the Mexicans as well. Talk about how they have a Black abuela. Well, do they call themselves Black now? You have some of them, as he's pointed out, who will admit to you, yes, I have a Black abuela. Okay, but you're not considering yourself a Black person right now. That's only 2-3 generations. Can you imagine after 10, 20 generations and everybody look like this? We, as foundational Black Americans, won't even exist. So, look, based on the math, in order to be a respected group, foundational Black Americans need to try to strengthen their genes. They should do their best to stay Black. Another reason why I don't understand why Umar Johnson, Tariq, they attack bed wenches and bed bugs. They attack people who have a white partner. Why? You can't attack them if you believe that they're still going to have Black children. If you believe biracial people are Black, then you cannot be against interracial relationships. Because those interracial relationships are doing what? Helping to grow the population based on your standards. That does not work. It just does not work. Again, you cannot criticize Black people. You can't call them a bed wench. You can't call them bed bugs if they have a white husband or wife, because they're still having Black children according to you. That does not work. It just doesn't work. The only thing that makes sense, if we're going to be a distinct, identifiable ethnic group, you have to protect your genes. And I'm just saying in general, this goes for any group of people. But especially if it's a Black group of people, because we look so much different from other groups. We look more different from other people than any other group of people look from anyone else. We stick out like a sore thumb. So if we want to entertain the idea of being an ethnic group, that must include the preservation of your genes. Isn't that the most important thing that makes a group a group? Did they carry the genetics of these people? Now, I'm not trying to force an ideology onto people. I'm just sharing with you with what I think makes sense. And this is what makes sense to me. And you notice other groups don't get involved with that. If you got a Black parent, they're not going to consider you Black. They're not going to consider your kids Black. Are they being mean and evil? No. They're just pointing out reality. Okay? You are a mixed race person. There's nothing wrong with being a mixed race person. We don't get to choose how we come into this world. I do think that there's something wrong with being dishonest, practicing dishonesty, living in a fantasy land, make believe, trying to tell me that I see something that I clearly don't see. Okay, is a Cadillac actually a Lincoln? A biracial person, what are they? They're biracial. If they were not biracial, you wouldn't be able to identify them as biracial. Simple as that. Meghan Markle identifies as a biracial person. I've seen a few articles on it. This is an article I found. I'm biracial, and people tell me I'm not black enough. Now, I don't believe that. Now, I'm sorry, I don't believe that. I've never heard black people talking about biracial people, you're not black enough. But maybe it's true. But you can't deny black people, foundational black Americans, we have a distinct genealogy, a distinct heritage, bloodline. And if you're not going to protect your blood, nobody's going to respect you as a group. It's sort of embarrassing to project ourselves as a distinct ethnic group if we're not also going to embrace our genes that makes us what we are. Because if we're no longer black, you can't call yourself a foundational black American. You can't. If you're no longer black, you cannot say that you're a foundational black American. For us to be a distinct ethnic group, we have to stay black. Now, is that true or not? What am I missing? Maybe I'm missing something. Listen, man, I ain't no dictator. I don't try to force people to believe a certain thing. Look, I'm asking a question. I'm trying to get, what am I missing? Can foundational black Americans still be foundational black Americans if they look like this? Huh? Make this make sense. You have to admit, blackness is a part of what makes us a distinct ethnic group. So if you want to exist as a group, you should seek to keep your genes intact. That's just a requirement. You cannot attack people who date interracial. It just doesn't make sense. If you're going to say that biracial people are just as black as any other black person, and that's literally what they say, man. That's literally what they don't literally say it, but they basically do. You heard them. Umar, you're black, you're African with a white parent. Tariq, no such thing as a biracial person in a system of white supremacy. You see what I'm saying? It makes no sense. We have to stay and listen. If black people were to do that, they would be the only group on the planet who's doing the opposite of what other groups are doing. When you look at these other groups, Viva la Raza, Improve the Race, you know, in other words, whiten up. You go to these different countries across the world, you find skin lightener like everywhere you go. I know it's particularly very heavy in Asia, different parts of Asia, where the lighter you are, the more you're seen as attractive. Lighter skin is very desirable. Over there, some parts of Asia, you'll see women in hot sunny days with an umbrella, an open umbrella to protect themselves from the sun so that they don't get dark. Over there in Yemen, I did some recent research. they have a caste system over there. And of course, the lightest of the people are at the top and the darkest are at the bottom. In India, they had a caste system, just like the one in Yemen. All across the world, you see, in the Philippines, it's very heavy. Light skin is, it's desired. It's the most desired skin tone. And they really look down on dark skin. So across the world, people are trying to get lighter. But if you're a group of black people, you can't do that. If you're a foundational black American, you can't do that same thing where you're trying to get everybody to lighten up, lighten up, lighten up. Well, eventually you won't even be a group of black people anymore. Again, I'm just pointing out what makes sense. That doesn't work. It's a dose of cold reality. Black Americans, if you want to exist as a group, then you have to stop saying that biracial people are black. That's a culture for genocide. That's a culture, that's a narrative that you would hear among a group. That's like Viva la Raza. Improve the rate, whiten up. That's basically the same thing. If you're saying biracial people are black, they're not biracial. That makes no sense. So in order for black people, black Americans, to be taken seriously, they have to protect their genes. They have to stop calling biracial people black. Now, if a biracial person wants to identify as a black person, if they themselves prefer to say that I am a black person, you cannot stop them. I don't have to agree with them, but you can't stop them if they want to say, yeah, I'm a black person, I'm a black man. However, I personally would not trust them. I wouldn't trust them. Why? Because they're being dishonest. It's just like when a witness tells one lie on the stand. They tell a jury, you can throw everything they say out the window. So I have a hard time trusting people who are dishonest, openly dishonest. So you're a biracial person, you want to call yourself black? Okay, fine. I'm just saying that is an act of dishonesty and it's unnecessary. Just because you're biracial, it doesn't make you any less of a person. It doesn't mean that you're somehow inferior. Why do we always assume that that's what it's supposed to mean? Just because you're biracial, it doesn't make you any less acceptable. Right? But let's just be honest about what you are. What's wrong with that? You have to be honest. You have to be honest. And I'm sorry, foundational black Americans, if you want to exist as a distinct racial group, then guess what? You have to have a culture that tries to get darker. You have to have a culture that seeks to have dark, black, not biracial. There's no way around that. There's no way around that. You have to make that one of your priorities to stay black. Because if you're not, you literally won't exist anymore. I'm just telling you what makes sense. I'm just telling you what makes sense. To me, that's the only thing that makes sense. And black people, you will be the only group of people on the planet who's not trying to lighten up. Because lightening up for you means going extinct. And really that's the case for all people. If you got let's say a Latin group of people and they like the Viva la Raza, lighten up, they can get lighter to the point where they look white. But they could, at that point, they can no longer call themselves brown. The only thing they'll have is the language. They'll still speak Spanish. Think Canelo Alvarez. He's a white dude. They call him Mexican. Well, he is Mexican, born and raised in Mexico. And he speaks Spanish. But is he considered a brown person? Nobody would look at Canelo and say he's a brown person. This brown thing is pretty popular. American Cholo says he's brown, and a lot of them talk about the brown people. Canelo ain't no brown person. So while he still may speak Spanish, he's not identified as a brown person. The same would apply to Black Americans. Only difference is if we become white, what language do we have to speak that would connect us with Black people? Nothing. We already speak English. And do you think that white person who got a Black great grandparent somewhere, do you think they're still going to speak the Black American slang? You think they're still going to speak Ebonics? They're not even going to identify as no foundational Black American. So I'm sorry, when I look at the math, when I look at the numbers, when I deal with logic, just myself, Black Americans, if you want to exist as a distinct group, you have to want to get blacker. Not specifically get blacker, but stay Black. One of your priorities has to be to have a Black partner. A Black partner. Black husband, Black wife. No matter how you cut it, if we want to exist in the future, it needs to be a priority to have a Black mate. Again, no disrespect to the biracial people. And really, if a biracial person is so proud and of their Blackness and identifies Black, they should be looking for a Black partner as well. And then their kids look for a Black partner. You know, you have to show some type of pride for what makes you what you are. And being Black is one of the major things that identifies us as a group. There's no way around it. So this is no disrespect. This is not an attack. It's not a diss video or nothing goofy like that. I just wanted to deal with this. I wouldn't be able to continue with my other content unless I got this off my chest. And again, if your offspring several generations down the road look like this, do you think they're still going to be fighting against injustice against Black people? They're not even going to be identifying as Black. Like, I'm white. I don't know what you're talking about. And they will be well within their rights to say, I ain't Black, I'm white. Look at me. They won't even identify as Black. So in other words, they don't fit the description. They've lost that quality of their ethnic group. They're not going to be fighting against injustice against Black Americans. They're not even going to be Black themselves. So we got to be real here, people. I just wanted to put this out. Let you marinate on it. Okay? And I know a lot of people are going to be offended no matter what. I don't know what it is, man. I really don't get it. A lot of people get real offensive when you say that biracial people are not Black. And I have noticed that a lot of Black people who do that, they have a white partner or they have biracial kids. I personally know people who they get offended. And then later on you find out that they have biracial children. and they don't want to refer to their kids as biracial. That's a problem. That's a problem to me. Honesty is the best thing to do, no matter what, no matter how ashamed you might be of it. Always be honest, man. Let's be honest, and that's going to show some integrity on our part. That is admirable. Honesty is something to admire. It's not an attack on white people. It's not an attack on biracial people. It's not an attack on anyone. It's just my attempt to plead with people to be honest, to be realistic. If you're so proud of being a foundational Black American, guess what? You have to stay Black. If you want foundational Black Americans to exist 1,000 years from now, you're going to have to still be Black. And considering biracial people Black is not going to help you to achieve that. It's not going to help you keep you in existence. That's an ideology that sets you up for genocide. Sets you up to self-exterminate, as many groups have already done. So that's my take, and I will see you all on the next live stream.